Hi, good morning. How are we all this morning? While we're waiting for a few people to jump on and join me this morning, I'd just like to say welcome and thank you so much for joining me on the first workshop for 2021. I'm so super excited. It's been a while since we've done a live video, and yeah, so I thought we'd start off the growing season a little bit differently this year. Traditionally, we start the season with Start Your Patch from Scratch. So this year I wanted to start with a soil health workshop for beginners. Now, if you, I'm not sure if you watched the soil health workshop we did last year with Anthony Holman. That's a little bit more advanced. So once you've watched this one and you're feeling comfortable with what you've learnt today, definitely go back into the announcement section and check out the workshop that we did with Anthony. Because yeah, it is more of a follow-on from what we're doing today. Soil, hi Chloe, hi Robin, hi Monique, hi Lindsay. Good morning everybody. Thanks for joining me. And yeah, so soil health is a really huge and complex subject. I've been trying to study soil health for a couple of years now, and I still can't wrap my head around a lot of it. So today, hi Helen, I am going to do my best to make it as simple as possible, so that people starting out with gardening or people who haven't looked too much into soil health can sort of get a bit of a basic understanding of what we need to do. Yeah, so I hope I've been able to sort of make it a little bit more understandable. But yeah, if you've got any questions, please type them and I'll do my best to answer them. If I can't answer them throughout the workshop, I will have a look afterwards and I will get back to you. But yeah, with the saying that, we've got a few people watching now, so we'll get started. So yeah, soil health is a vast and complex topic. So today I'm going to try and make it a little bit more easy for you to understand so that you can get the best out of your soil for the growing season this year. So as humans, we get the nutrients we need from the food that we eat. So it stands to reason that the plants get their nutrition from the soil. Is that going to fall? Okay, having some technical difficulties. Hopefully that doesn't go too much further over. Yes, so the plants get their nutrients from the soil. So if we don't improve the soil, the plants don't have anywhere to get their nutrients from. If you've ever wondered why homegrown produce tastes better than store-bought, it's because of soil health. So a lot of our agricultural land is now very depleted. So they just don't have the nutrients in the soil that there once was there. Where are we going? So if the plants can't access those nutrients, then neither can we. So we are better off growing our own food and making sure that the soil is as healthy as possible, because there's no real point growing into dirt and then having nutritionally dead or not as much nutrients available in the food that we eat. Studies done in the early 2000s show that produce from 1999 had up to 40% less nutrients than those same produce items from the 1950s. Now that study was done, based on stuff done over 20 years ago. So you can imagine if in a 50-year period we lost up to 40% of nutritional density in our food, we've now been another 20 plus years from that. So, you could only imagine with the explosion of the modern agricultural system with genetically modified crops that, the soil is just degrading, and so our nutrients in our food is just getting less and less. So soil health, it's not something that you can achieve overnight. It is a longer process. But if you start now, over the seasons, you will find that your soil gets better and gets richer. And the more you put into your soil, the less, the more you get out of it. So one of the first things that you can do for your soil is to stop digging it. So what we now know is that digging the soil or tillage causes compaction. So while you're trying to dig it up, to aerate it and, you know, get it so that it's nice and soft, that actually in the long term will actually cause more compaction. So stop digging. It also makes it easier for you. If you're not digging, that's less work. And also our soil is full. If you've got good quality, healthy soil, it is absolutely teeming with life. They believe that in 1 teaspoon of soil, there could be more microorganisms in the 1 teaspoon of soil than what there is people alive on the planet today. So when we dig soil, that kills a lot of that beneficial bacteria and fungi, because we're putting through, you know, putting the shovel through or the fork through and turning it over. So that rips it all up. Now, some of your smaller stuff will survive, but your bigger stuff, your mycorrhizal fungi and a lot of your little microorganisms, that all dies when you dig the soil. So then they have to start again. Whereas if we leave the soil as is, those microorganisms, those relationships that they've all formed with each other, they're still there, they're still intact, and they're ready to start attaching themselves to your plant roots and help your plants grow stronger, faster. So that's really the number one thing you can do, is say, right, I'm not going to dig my soil this year, I'm just going to add on top of it. So then realistically, your number one job you're going to do, and you've all heard me say compost, compost, compost a million times before. You're going to hear me say it a dozen or more so times again today. Compost really is your best friend for so many reasons. Okay, the chickens are going to join us. Let's see if the roosters are going to come in today too. I'm sure they will at some point. So yeah, compost, you know, I can't stress enough the importance of composting for so many reasons. One, you know, it's going to be your number one best friend for soil health. But also it's going to obviously reduce your food waste, reduces your landfill quota. We've all now just got our recycling bins. I've had my recycle bin for a week now. I think I've emptied my landfill bin, which is only like one of those small waste paper baskets anyway. I think I've emptied that maybe twice in just under 2 weeks. So if you do your food scraps for composting or for chickens or for worm farms, and then use your recycle bin, your landfill bin really will take a really long time to fill up and need to be emptied. So yeah, compost, you know, if you've got your compost done properly, which, you know, it's not a hard thing to do. It's, you know, your compost will already be teeming with life by the time you pop it down on top of your soil. There's another thing. Store-bought compost is fine, but just be mindful that wherever that compost was made, that it has the microorganisms and bacteria and fungi that was native to where it was made. Okay, so and you know, this is the same for anything really. Local is best. You know, locally made, locally produced, and it's the same for your compost. So if you've got your compost that you've made here, it's already got the native, locally hardened, acclimatized bacteria, fungi, all those good nutrients that we need. So they're not going to, when you put it down, they're not going to have to adapt to a new climate like a store-bought bag would. But I understand, obviously, not everybody can make their own compost, so store-bought is fine. But best is homemade. Okay, so to begin with, your new soil will need nutrients added in. As time goes by, though, you will have less and less need to add in nutrients, because your soil already has pretty much all the nutrients it needs. Once you've got good quality soil, it's got all the nutrients there. It's just about making those nutrients available to the plants. So yeah, the more time and effort you put in, the less time and effort you need to put in. I find that with our harsh climate here, you know, in summer, like you'll find that when, you know, by the end of the season, you know, you start your season, your soil looks beautiful and it's holding water and it's got that really nice dark colour to it. By the end of the season, and especially by the beginning of the next season, just kind of looks a lot like Pindan again. I do find that the heat does seem to run through, just so it seems to burn through a lot of our organic matter. So it's something here that we're always going to have to work harder on, as usual, for us up in Headland. So that's not something that you can say, right, well, I've done all my composting, it's good now. It's something that you are going to have to continue to do. So, you know, getting those nutrients up to a really good level is a little bit harder for us because the sun just depletes so much of it, but it can be done. I've seen the reports over the last couple of years on both the community garden and my garden at home, and each year there is a definite increase on the available nutrients in the soil, the organic matter content. So it absolutely can be done. It's just a bit slower here. There are things you can do to speed that up, but it's still going to take time. So your organic matter is critical for soil health. I try not to use Pindan. I know some people will tell you Pindan's great. I don't use it. I try not to have it in anything that I do. Absolutely, Renee. So does that mean maybe adding more compost before the growing season? Absolutely. So before you start planting, you need to redo your soil. So just leave your soil as it is. So leave all your mulch on top from last season and just add your new compost, your new manure, your new mulch directly on top. And what that's going to do is that bottom layer of mulch that was last year's top layer is going to decompose. It's already got all your beneficials in it. It's full of bacteria and fungi and all of those beautiful things we need. Putting your compost on it then is then just going to accelerate that breakdown into organic matter, which is what I'm going through now. Organic matter is key. If you have a look at just plain old Pindan or even your soil from last year, it's very dry and just kind of looks like sand. If it's looking like sand, then it's not going to hold on to any moisture. And that's the key, is to hold on to as much moisture as we can. And organic matter is the way we do that. So by leaving your old mulch there, it's a sponge. Okay, it's going to soak up as much water as possible, and it's going to keep your plants moister for longer. Okay, so yeah, and then so if you're going to dig all that over, it's going to break everything up. It's going to kill a lot of your fungi and a lot of your bacteria, and then it all has to start again. Whereas if you leave it there, it's already there. It's already working. It's already processing. Hi, Skip It. How are you? 50. Yep, absolutely, Chloe. So if you can get it done now, I know it's hot. I haven't done anything at home yet. Yeah, if you can get it done in the next couple of weeks before it's ready to plant, put it all on top, let it sit and let it start to break down, and then, you know, your process has already started before you go to plant in a month or so's time. Where are we up to? So yeah, so your organic matter, it's going to help you retain your water, so less watering, less stress on your plants, and it also helps build your soil structure so that your roots have got something to hold on to, and that all of your microorganisms in the soil have also got something to build on. Okay, so what we plant, so once you've done all that, and you've got your soil, you know, you've got your new compost and your new manure sitting on top, what we plant and how we plant it is just as important. Okay, so monocrops, no, we need to get rid of that. You know, if we just plant one thing in the soil, it's all going to take, every single plant there is going to take the same nutrient. Okay, and so it's going to leave key nutrients in the soil, but it's going to take out the same of everything. And what happens is when we, you know, and then the plant gets stressed out. Once a plant starts to stress, that's when you get your bugs, your pests, your diseases. So the more different plants that you can put in the one garden bed, the better the soil health is going to be. They say that a minimum of 4 different varieties of plants in each garden bed will really start the process going. So what happens is, if we've got, you know, you've got some corn, or say take the Three Sisters method is an example, although they only use 3, is everything works in a symbiotic relationship. So you'll plant the corn, and once the corn gets to a certain height, now corn is a very heavy feeder, so they take a lot of nutrients out of the soil, so you need to give them, you know, you need to give them a hand. Once they've grown to a certain point, you then put your beans in. So your beans are your legumes, or any of your legumes you can put in with the corn, and that's going to actually put nitrogen into the soil. So the beans and the corn work really well together, because as the beans are putting the nitrogen into the soil, the corn is then taking it back out again. Then once they've grown up a little bit is when you would put in your squash or your pumpkin, something of that variety. And what that's going to do is that's going to create your ground cover, or your cover crop, your cover plant, whatever term you wish to use. Now, that also is going to create shade. It's going to create a living mulch, which keeps the soil moist. It also, as those leaves die off, starts to break down and decompose and adds more organic matter to your soil. So it all works in together. Yeah, Renee, I think any bean is fine. I mean, obviously snake beans here are the best to use for our climate. And they need something to grow up. So the corn is perfect, especially if you've got a nice tall variety of corn. It's just getting your timing right so you don't plant them at the same time. You've got to wait, because obviously your beans are very fast growing here. You got to wait for your corn to sort of be a certain height, and I don't know the exact measurement for that. Yeah, go away flies, definitely. But yeah, so I personally would just use snake beans, but give any bean a try, really. See how it goes. So yeah, so we need those different things. So people can call it companion planting, and obviously most people will sort of refer to companion planting as keeping the pests at bay and dealing with things above the ground. So obviously, you know, planting things like coriander. I know a lot of people don't like coriander. I would plant coriander anyway. If you can stand the smell, it's absolutely perfect for your garden, because the pest species do not like it, and the beneficial bugs love it. So even if you're not going to eat coriander, there's a huge market for selling it here, giving it away anyway. So I would plant coriander anyway, because it will keep the pests off the other plants that you put into that bed. Yes, skip it, ask away. And so what happens with companion planting is obviously it helps to keep the pests away above the soil, but it's also working on soil health below the soil. And so my philosophy on gardening is I don't grow plants, I grow soil. Okay, so I work my passion is soil health and composting, and so I grow healthy soil, and as a side effect of that, the healthy soil then grows a healthy plant. If you concentrate on just growing the plant, you can, deplete your soil, and over the long term, that's not good for plant health. It's not good for your nutrition. So if you work on the soil, let the soil take care of the plant for you. Okay. Alright, so soil pH, and I am only a very, very beginner on soil pH. I know it is really, really important, and it is a huge part of soil health. I hope I'm going to do it justice right now, but there is a lot of stuff online about it, and there's quite a few really great videos on soil health and some really good articles. I will post those up, as well as the notes that I've written after the workshop. So hopefully, yeah, there's some stuff that you can watch that will help give you a better understanding or a broader understanding if I've missed something or if I haven't been quite so clear. Let's go right now. It's good soil using gardening. Okay, so to grow now, that's a bit of a tricky one at the moment. Skip it. It's, being March is unpredictable with the temperature. Usually it's, we can generally expect that it's going to get really hot again, which, most seedlings won't survive through that unless you've got them under cover. But at this time of year, it's a bit of a gamble. I mean, if we have a March like February, then we need to plant now. But your hardier stuff is fine now. So a lot of people will be putting tomatoes in already. I haven't yet, but a lot of people will have. Your lemongrass, your chilies, your eggplants, okra, snake beans, marigolds, sunflowers. Most of what I've got available for sale at the moment is ready to go in now. We will have a new and improved and updated growers guide out for you really soon, so keep an eye on that. Excuse me, hang on. Pots. Look, I'm not huge on pots. I don't grow in pots. Pots, you may have to, I would possibly with your pots, Renee, maybe tip it into your compost and start again. I know if you've planted tomatoes, so with your tomatoes, you won't be able to plant tomatoes back into that same soil this year. So I would either plant something else in there or tip it out into your compost, let it break down in there, get all nice and full of your beneficials, and start again, and then that way it'll compost and you can use it somewhere else. So yeah, soil pH is a really key factor in your soil health as well. So a lot of most if not all of the nutrients, once your soil is good, the nutrients are all there. So it's just that they may not be accessible to the plant, and soil pH is the big key for that. So if we have a look, I printed this out. Now you can Google it. It was just, I think it was called soil pH chart or something, but I'll also post a copy of it on the page once we're done. And it's basically telling you what's available at what pH level. Now in Port Hedland, most of our soil is alkaline. So we need to try and bring that alkaline levels down to a closer neutral now. So some of our soil can be quite alkaline. So if you look, neutral is 7. So 7 is your optimum, is where you want it to be. And at a pH level of 7, all the key nutrients that you need are readily available for your soil, for your plants to uptake that. Now, as it goes more alkaline, we get less and less of some things. And we need a good mix of everything that is here. So if you have a look now, I think mine sort of sits somewhere between 7.5 and 8, I think, at the beginning, before I was using amendments. Kim, yeah, that's fine. Look, they say don't put tomatoes in the same bed, in consecutive years, but I find if they pop up, I leave them there. However, tomatoes really, really love to be transplanted. So if you've got a space that you want them to go in this year to give that bed from last year a break, tomatoes, so wait until they're sort of, 6 inches high and remove them, and then plant them in your new bed. Plant them down to the first set of leaves. So if you plant them, you'll sort of plant them a good, 3 or 4 inches deep. And then what will happen with your tomatoes is all those little fine white hairs on the stalk, they're roots. So if you plant those underneath the soil, that's going to drop more roots and it's going to make your tomatoes stronger. So don't be afraid to transplant tomatoes. They actually really, really like it, and they really benefit from it, because the deeper you can get that stalk, the stronger your plant is going to be. So, look, I would move them. Leave them if you want, but I would move them because it'll make them stronger and healthier. So yeah, I don't know that anybody here would have acidic soil, but most of us here will have the alkaline. And there are a few ways that you can help bring down that and make it slightly more acidic, or make it, closer to neutral. Look, there are products that you can go and buy that will bring it down quickly. I don't add things like that into my garden. I do everything organically. I do everything naturally. Does it take longer? Absolutely it does. But it's better for the long-term health of my soil and the long-term health of my plants. And obviously, again, the long-term health of the nutrition of those plants that I'm growing. So yeah, some of the ways that you can lower your pH levels, again, is compost. So it's just, my answer to just about anything with the garden is compost. Good quality, homemade compost. So that's, compost. Your livestock manure is also really good to help lower the levels of your pH. Gypsum, so don't use dolomite, you need to use gypsum. if Home Hardware don't have any gypsum, they can get it in. It's in their system, so you just ask them to order it in. It is usually on the shelf, but if they don't have it, ask and they can get it in pretty quickly. So gypsum is what we need here, not dolomite, because gypsum takes the level of your pH down. Other things, eggshells. I love powdered eggshells. They're, such a great thing to use in your garden. One, they're free. You've already paid for the eggs. It's a byproduct. They're really easy to do. I have a container on my bench. I chuck my eggshells in there. I don't wash them. They dry out really, really quickly. And then I've got a Thermomix, so I just powder it up. You don't have to powder it, but just remember with eggshells that they're a calcium, so they're basically really, really strong and will take a really long time to break down. So if you just chuck a whole eggshell in your compost, it'll be there for years and years. If you crush it, it'll take less time, but if you have the ability to powder it, I would powder it, because if you powder it, you give it a really good water and it dissolves straight in. And that's another really good way to help lower your pH, and it's free. You know where it's come from, especially if you've got your own chickens. And coffee grounds is another good one that will help. Now, I don't put coffee grounds straight onto my beds. If you do a Google search on it, it's 50-50. Some people say you can, some people say you can't. I do use coffee grounds to help stop mealybugs and aphids. If you've got a plant, you can just put a ring of coffee grounds around the plant and it'll stop the ants from coming in, and that can break your cycle of them coming in or stop them from coming in altogether. Coffee grounds, I usually compost it. Your compost will take huge amounts of coffee grounds. It's a nitrogen source, and it will turn very, very quickly, and it will help bring down your pH level. It does take time. Look, if you're going to use the natural stuff, your pH level is not going to drop overnight. But it's a safer, more friendly way. If you're going to use the stuff that you can buy, yes, it will work quicker, but it can damage the plants if you don't put it on in the right ratios. So for me, natural homemade is always going to be my first option. Some of the tomatoes stayed alive over the summer. Should I keep them or try and move them? Look, I would, if they're that well established, I would probably leave them. Just add what you can, so maybe just a small layer of compost, and then remulch it. So leave your old mulch there, put a thin layer of compost on top, and then another layer of mulch, and give it a good water in. I'm assuming you'd be still keeping up your fertilizers and your sea salt and your worm leachate and stuff like that anyway. So I've seen people have tomatoes for a couple of years up here. I know of at least 2 people who've had them over successive seasons, and they've done quite fine. And then finally is your mulch. Mulch again. So everything that we have, everything that we're doing with soil health doesn't just benefit that one thing. So it's a really good full cycle sort of thing. So your mulch is really, really important. One, obviously when we've got our growing season going, we've got our plants in, we're mulching to protect the soil, to keep it moist, to stop more evaporation, to keep that water in the soil with the plants, so that they don't dry out and stress. A stressed plant is a sick plant. It'll attract the disease. Rebecca, chook poop straight into the compost. Look, it depends on when you want to use compost. If you want to use it in 3 weeks' time and it's fresh chook poo, no, because chook poo is really, really strong and it will burn your plants if you put it on fresh. I have seen people, if anybody's on WA Gardeners and Earth Gardeners, one of the main admins there from down in Albany, Mark Cousins, he puts fresh chook poop on stuff. If you watched his experiment last year with the silver beet, he did do it in a certain way though, where he put it around the plants and not directly on the plants. Look, I have started digging out my chook pens and putting it directly on top of my soil, but it's fresh mixed with aged, and by the time I go to plant in it, I'm assuming it'll be fine. but yeah, if you're going to use that compost down the track once it's fully broken down, I would think chucking your chook poo in there's fine. Especially, I mean, you've only got 3 chickens, Beck, so you're not putting in massive amounts. And so long as you balance that out with your other ingredients, I would think it'll be fine. So yeah, mulch also is really good for creating that soil, that biodiversity, because, you know, we've all seen, you know, when you've got a really good mulch on and it stays nice and moist, you'll get your fungus come through. So with the mushrooms and the toadstools and stuff that come through, that's a good sign, okay? Because obviously your mushrooms and your fungus and your toadstools are a fungus. So basically a mushroom coming out is just an eruption of that fungus from the soil. It means your soil is full of fungus and bacteria and all the good stuff, and it's just erupting. Now, you know, number one rule of mushrooms, don't eat them. If you do not 100% know what they are, don't eat them. But they are good for your soil. So I usually just hit them with the hose on the jet spray and sort of just break it down back into the soil and let it go back and feed and become, you know, more healthy. Chook poo liquid that can be done, absolutely. So chook poo liquid is the fastest way that you can use your chook poo. So get yourself a container with a lid, because the stuff is foul, it really stinks. So pop, you know, whatever you've got of your chook poo in, fill it up with water, leave it for at least 2 weeks to ferment, and then you can use it as a liquid fertilizer. You've got to make sure you dilute it properly, because again, it's really strong. So usually it's that 1-to-10 ratio in your watering can or your spray bottle or whatever you're going to use. But yeah, that's the fastest way to use chook poo, is to make it into a liquid. So yeah, again with your mulch, it protects your soil and your plants, but as the season goes on, it starts to decompose from the bottom, and it's creating what you call humus, which is your organic matter, and it's keeping your system going. Yeah, Chloe, mushrooms are good. Really good sign that you're doing the right thing, that your soil is healthy, and that things are really working well underneath the soil there. A couple of things that you can do to test your pH. You can get, I know Home Hardware sell these. I haven't used it before. One of my beautiful Kids Club kids has been doing it with this at Baylor with Anthony. So it's something the kids can do. So she's going to use this when Kids Club start, and we're going to do a bit of an experiment to see what the pH level is like at the community garden this year. Otherwise, you've got this little probe that I bought because I'm too lazy to do this one. And so this I will be able to just stick in the ground, and it will tell me where I'm at. Now I know roughly where my pH is. It needs improving, but it's not as bad as what it was. So it'll be interesting to see what it is this year, after another year of working on soil health. But I know what it has been in the previous years, so it'll be really good to see if it's come down. And this we can just stick in it and it'll read it for us. I did buy this in Perth, but I'm assuming you can probably get it from Home Hardware. If not, I'm sure they can get it in. Yeah. So I think that's basically it on the basics of soil health. I hope that wasn't too technical. Please ask questions, so you can continue. I'll just have a bit of a chat for a couple of minutes while people want to type questions. Otherwise, you can private message me, you can email me, text me. No, not for me. How often to check the pH? I think I did read, about every 6 months. Every 12 months is fine if you want to check it, but if you want to check it at the end of the growing season to see where you're at, so you know what you need to do for next season, and then you can start improving it over the summer. One of the best ways to keep your soil healthy is to keep things in there alive. Now, at the community garden, most of my beds do have stuff growing in them all summer. Which helps keep, obviously, the organisms alive. It gives them something to feed on, and it does continue that soil health to be improving over summer, even if we're not eating a lot of that stuff. it's still going to help improve the soil, keep it alive. At home, I let my chickens out over the summer, and so where all my plants die off, it is getting that extra fertilizer. It's getting a bit of a scratch, getting that chook poo turned in, and so I think, you know, if I could, I would have the plants going all summer. I keep saying every year that I'm going to do that, but every year I don't. Every year I let my chickens out and let them sort of have a bit of a free range. My cuttings are going great and still in covered pots. I did see that you sent a picture, Robin. I'll have a look at that later. Excellent that those cuttings are growing. Okay, so normal pH, so 7 is neutral. So 7 is the, you know, is the absolute ultimate. It depends on how healthy your soil is as to what your pH level is, though. I think up here, without any help, I think, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, I think a lot of people can possibly be sitting at about 8. So you really do need to bring it down with the methods that are that I've mentioned before. So compost, coffee grounds, eggshells, gypsum, and yeah, it is a slow process. Yeah, so I'm just having a think now. So yeah, once you've got your head around this, definitely go and watch Anthony's video from last year to follow on from this. I'll bump it up so that you can find it more easily. Otherwise, it is in the announcement section of this group. And yeah, definitely some really great websites or people to look at is the Weedy Garden. If you haven't looked at the Weedy Garden yet on YouTube, I would jump on and have a look at his videos. He actually makes a soil bacteria that he puts in to help speed up the process. So definitely have a look at that one. Now, the first video he did was when he made it. He then, I think video number 6 was where he sort of corrected things, so where he learnt from his mistakes, what worked, what didn't work. So I would watch video 1 and then jump straight to video, I'm pretty sure it's number 6, and he goes through a really in-depth reason for why he used what he used, what worked, what didn't work, and then what he changed. So that's a really great one to watch. Once you're sort of ready to move on and step up a little bit, check out Dr. Elaine Ingham. Now, she runs, or was the original founder of the Soil Food Web. They do some really great videos, which I will post up after this workshop. And yeah, there's some really good ones. So Weedy Garden, Soil Food Web, Dr. Elaine Ingham. Gabe Brown's another one. He does some amazing work in soil health. He's got a lot of YouTube videos out there. He's got a lot. Most of the stuff is a few years old, but he has started posting again recently. So I would watch the more recent stuff because he's got further along with his testing and he's doing some really great things in the field. Ray Archuleta is also another great one. He's a soil agronomist, I think he is. He does some really good work with soil health. Yeah, Renee, I'm not sure. I think if we take the food away, they don't have as much to eat. So whether some of it dies off over summer, I would assume it probably does, which is why we need those cover crops, cover plants, why we need to always have living roots in the soil to keep those microorganisms healthy and happy. Look, up here it can be hard, it's hot, you know, and I'm the first one to admit there's nothing. I've got a pumpkin and a loofah in my backyard and that's about it. So I do sort of start again, but my organic matter and my soil health with everything else is already really high. So I'd like to think that because there's a lot of organic matter in there, is still a certain amount of food in there for them. But keeping those living roots in the soil for as long as you possibly can is the best way to keep your soil healthy and protected. I hope that answered that question. Yeah, so how are we going for time? Okay, so it's 20 to 10. We've been on for 40 minutes. So I'll probably wrap it up there. Thank you everybody so much for watching. We have got a jam-packed season this year. I'm not sure how I'm going to fit it all in, but I'm certainly going to try. Our next workshop will be Start Your Patch from Scratch, and that will be, I'd like to say, the 27th of March. I think that's the Saturday. And then that will be back at the community garden, and that will be in person. But as like we did last year when we went back to the garden, everything that we do in person will also be live streamed. And yeah, but I'd love to see some faces at the garden. I'm pretty sure, like I said, the 27th of March. So come along. So make sure you keep your questions up. This is a huge topic. I barely scratched the surface today, but I hope I've given you enough tools to get you started and to get your journey moving along for the season. So yeah, make sure you post photos, get involved, come and visit. I will be at the garden more going forward now. Make sure you come in and have a chat. And yeah, post photos, share your success stories, share your failures, because what, you know, I find that I learn more from failure than I do from success. So when something doesn't work, I want to know why and how. And if you can figure that out, share that knowledge. You know, why didn't this work for you? And somebody can say, oh, I didn't realize that. And now we can, you know, we can figure out together and grow better stuff together. So yeah, thank you very much everybody for watching, and I will post these notes shortly and some links to videos and things. Have a great Saturday. I'm definitely going inside to the aircon now because it's quite warm out here. Have a great day, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.